I'm unsure whether to divorce my otherwise kind husband who occasionally emotionally abuses me. We've been married a year and a half, 28/F, 33/M, and we married very quickly, so a lot of the traits I'm talking about today absolutely came as a surprise over the course of our time together. As far as what I'm potentially considering emotional abuse, I'm unsure. ADP. My husband is largely conflict avoidant. I've come to him repeatedly regarding feeling emotionally invalidated in the relationship. He often gaslights me or outright denies my experience. He might say something like, "You're so sensitive. You're always looking for problems where there aren't any." He's perfectly comfortable with moving on from something without ever addressing it, even if I feel deeply misunderstood and the conflict does not resolve. I might suggest tackling problems together by trying to improve our conflict resolution skills, and he will tell me that this simply isn't high on his priority list, and that what I really want is to ramp up conflict in the relationship, and that I'm manifesting more conflict. He will often twist my pleas for healthier communication and start to say I'm taking everything he says wrong, that I'm even manipulating him. He so rarely apologizes, and I've never had a sincere, heartfelt apology either. And he does not take accountability for his part of our relationship. He really does flip it to where I'm the problem for having a problem. He went to therapy early on in the relationship with me, but we never got to conflict resolution. We kind of stayed stuck on attachment styles and how I leaned anxious and he's avoidant, and I needed to become more secure, which I will say I've improved on a lot as far as bombarding my spouse with my feelings. I'm completely willing to take ownership for my emotional regulation, and I'm better at it than before. Now my husband does not want to go to therapy at all, because he says we went already. Now to the parts that complicate this for me. My husband is only like this during conflict or confrontation, when tensions are high. Otherwise, he is not avoidant. He's very high on physical touch and acts of service. The same person I described above is the same person who worries about whether or not I ate or drank water. He will do chores to lighten my load. He will brush the snow off of my car and make sure the maintenance is up to date. He will remember how I like my coffee. He is not very strong with verbal affection, but he tells me he loves me often. He is often squeezing me and kissing my forehead, which makes me feel very loved. Most days we don't have conflict, and maybe that's because we're avoiding it, but most days are pretty easy. Even though he's a little bit stoic and antisocial with others, we can be silly together, and we are often lounging in our comfortable little cocoon. He's often checking in on me, not in a controlling way by any means, but just text me to see how I'm doing. He isn't the most vulnerable or the most emotionally adept, so he often does fall into solver mentality rather than sitting with my feelings with me, but he does stay present whenever I have something to vent about that isn't about our relationship, and he often tries to uplift me, even if it does feel invalidating from my end sometimes because he's solving for my discomfort. He will offer to help my friends out if they get stuck on the side of the road, or he will show up to fumigate my mom's house. He is truly reliable. I also trust him infinitely as far as infidelity or anything like that. He's never been a wandering eye type. I generally trust his character. He also supports my hobbies and interests even though he doesn't share them. We both want to start a family. He's very generous with his time and resources. I made him a little gratitude list the other day, and he doesn't shrug it off. He may not say anything verbally, but he hugs me, and then he displays it on the shelf right by the front door. I also still feel strong romantic feelings for him, and while this may be superficial, he's objectively good-looking, like GQ model good-looking, and I doubt I'll bag a better-looking man TBH, but I recognize that this can't be too high on my priority list as far as taking an action to divorce or not. Other things to note are personality differences. He's more introverted than I am, like really introverted and distrusting of others. He often doesn't engage when we are out socially. I'm a feeler and he's a thinker. We have different interests and hobbies, and honestly some of our sense of humor aligns, but not all of it. I haven't considered these deal breakers, but they are definitely notable differences that I'm adding it to the equation. I'm really stuck on what to do or where to go with the state of our relationship when it's so hard to communicate with him sometimes. We talked about divorce today, and he completely threw his hands up ready to quit. He says he's exhausted and that he doesn't know what to do, even though I'm telling him let's go to therapy, and am telling him exactly what I want to work on. We both pretty much agreed to divorce and agreed we might have some fundamental incompatibilities. It felt pretty grim and hopeless. An hour later we were hugging, not talking, and I asked him if he was 100% sure he wanted to end things, and he said no, and I said me neither. So now we're just in kind of a limbo, and the idea of divorce has been thrown out there. Does this seem like it could get better with time and firmer boundaries? Or am I trying to overlook what may be early emotional abuse that might only get worse?